Welcome to our channel once again. This is the last video on electric vehicle charging cost, and this video has been made based on the Chancellor Richard Reeves' promise of a 65 million investment in the UK on electric charging points in the country. In this video, we ask the question: if the investment of 65 million pounds goes far enough, and does this investment address the current problems faced by electric vehicle owners? In our previous video, we did look at the cost differential between the haves and have-nots, i.e. people who have drives and therefore are able to install specific charging points in their homes for their electric vehicles, and those who do not have drive and having to use either off-street charging points or charging in filling stations. And so we'll just go straight into the video, basically into the article by the Chancellor, to find out if the investment of 65 million pounds boosting electric charging points in the UK goes far enough. So we see here an article by Freda Lewis. It's written on the 29th of January. It says, what is the Chancellor Richard Reeves promising electric car drivers in her new economy boosting pledge? Richard Reeves has unveiled new investment in EV charging points to help EV uptake. But the question is, does 65 million pounds go far enough? And is this actually addressing current EV owners, their charging challenges, or is this a talk for the future? So Richard Reeves has announced a 65 million investment into electric car charging infrastructure as part of a raft of new measures to kickstart the economy. On-street charging are prioritized in Chancellor's speech on Wednesday morning, delivered from the Siemens Healthineers factory in Oxfordshire, in which she pledges new policies to boost UK economic growth. The money earmarked for the network of EV devices aims to make charging more accessible and accelerate the switch to zero-emission vehicles in what has been dubbed a welcome boost by industry insiders. Connected Curb, an EV charging company that delivers on-street charging and works with manufacturers including Vauxhall, will receive the 65 million pounds investment to expand its network across the UK. The funding will come via new National Wealth Fund, NWF, and Aviva investors. Currently, a lack of on-street EV charging is seen as one of the biggest barriers to EV uptake. And so here we go, that, currently people are purchasing these EVs, especially private hire drivers and chauffeurs within London are having to, it's basically mandatory for them to have electric vehicles for their work. But then it seems that all this 65 million investment promise should have come a lot earlier, obviously to take care of the current EV charging challenges for people who do not have drives. But now you see this promise, and the question is, does that really meet the needs of the charging point shortages that is currently problem facing EV owners? So we carry on. Currently, a lack of on-street EV charging is seen as one of the biggest barriers to EV uptake, with a third of households in England on not having access to off-street parking and therefore rely on public chargers and an uneven spread of devices across the country. The Chancellor will hope the investment will trigger increased EV demands as Labour stands by its promise to outlaw sale on a new petrol and diesel cars from 2030. So 2030, as it seems, is not very far off. It's only 5 years from now. Now, if we look at the current EV charging problems that we have, and also the price differential from the previous video indicated that if you have two owners using their EV for 6 days, each one of them requiring a full battery, which can be about 70 kilowatts or 70 to 80 kilowatts, the price differential per day, the guy that is using the charging points in filling station, for example, Instavolt or Shell, that are charging there about 85 pounds per 85 pence per kilowatt hour, and obviously charging points in-house, the price differential on an annual basis came up to about £19,500, which is a huge difference. And this is what currently the Chancellor have to find a way to address this differential, either to communicate with these charging points and filling stations to drop their charges to a standard rate of about 36 pence per kilowatt hour, which is a reasonable price for electric vehicles, because if we are to use these electric vehicles, they must come up cheaper than petrol and diesel engines, because the electric vehicles have also got added challenge of long distance travel. Because if you're traveling from, say, London to a place like, say, Edinburgh, you may have to charge about 2 or 3 times to get to that location. And on each charge, on the rapid charge for a full battery, you're looking at something near 70 to 80 pounds to charge. And therefore, the cost of traveling from London to a place like Edinburgh on a diesel engine could be about 40 pounds. But if you use an electric vehicle, you may be ending up paying almost 3 times that amount to actually make the same journey. Then you also have the added issue of having to stop to charge. And so from London to Edinburgh, you may find that you may have to charge maybe about 3 hours plus in order to get to your destination. So in effect, if your journey time is about 7 hours, you may then have to add about 3 to 4 hours of charging time to get there. You may also have the added problem of when you get to a particular location, you find out that it may indicate that that charging unit is available, but when you get there, you may find that the charging unit is either broken, it may not be taking your credit card. There are a whole host of problems. Or it may want you to download an app before you can actually use these charging points. And so these are the issues that I think the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, should actually work on addressing. These are the immediate issues. But the promise of a £65 million to a company that deals with on-street charging may not necessarily be a solution to the current problems faced by EV owners. We also need to be looking at things like the range on a vehicle. That is, if you get a full battery, at least we need to be looking at getting to ranges of about 500 miles on a full battery to make this whole EV thing really work. Adam Wood Renault UK Managing Director said investment in off-street charging infrastructure is especially welcome, both for addressing a critical requirement to give people without a drive an easy, affordable way to charge an electric car, and for signaling a firm government commitment to making the transition to electric vehicles happen to the timescale it has set with its mandate. And so this is all a good talk, talking about making it affordable. So the point is that what is an affordable price? You may also find that EV charging in these filling stations, they don't even display prices. Are you with me? You only get to know the prices when you have actually gotten ready to tap your card. This is when it may show you the price at which you are purchasing this electricity for your vehicle. And so all these should be made available, should be displayed just as the petrol and diesel are displayed. These electric vehicle charging points must also clearly display their prices. Regulators needs to be out there regulating these prices, looking at why the differences. Why should, say, Shell or Instavo charge between 85 pence to 89 pence per kilowatt hour, and then you have a company like BP Pulse charging at 65 pence per kilowatt hour, and Teslas are doing theirs for 43 pence per kilowatt. Why the differences? Because these differences, if you are using these points on a regular basis, i.e. 6 days a week, can make a huge difference on an annual bill. It can be anything between 8 to 19,000 pounds difference. That is if you are having to use a full battery 6 days in a week. You may find that these are the price differences. And also, if you need a full battery to do long distance travel within the UK, you may find that this thing costs you a fortune. And so the Chancellor's aim is to be looking at addressing the issues now. These promises of an investment of £65 million and the lot, it all sounds good. It all sounds like, yes, we have seen that there is a problem. We're trying to address it. But the reality is that the problems needs to be addressed now. They have to be an immediate address to these problems, to the owners of EV at this very moment, not in the distant future. So we carry on. The Chancellor also used the announced on Wednesday to confirm a 28 million equity investment in Cornish Metal, a firm that mines minerals for EV batteries and solar panel. Now, how does this actually help the ordinary guy that have purchased an electric vehicle? Sometimes, well, most of the time, not by their choice, but the mandatory demand by the Transport for London, TfL. So, these type of talks needs to indeed match the problems, the current problems, rather than a pledge for the future. As part of its election manifesto, Labour pledged to set binding targets for EV charging points rollout, as well as release and redirect the existing 950 million rapid charging fund to remove planning barriers to charging point rollout. The Chancellor then doubled down on this commitment in the autumn budget when announcing a further 200 million investment in public charging between 2025 and 2026. It was established that local authorities will be given funding to support on-street charging across England. And so this one to do with the local authority funding to them to create this on-street charging points can be very useful. But the point is that how do we solve the problem of the current EV charging price differences? This is what is actually killing the ordinary guy on the street. And this is where a real solution needs to be found to bridge the gap, to set what a good average price is. Because if we are to basically, labor is to go on its target of basically banning the production and selling of diesel and petrol engines in the next 5 years, that is by 2030, then that uniformity in price, just as it is in the prices of diesel and petrol, should be present now and not in the distant future. So we look at the investment in connected curb will help firms achieve its ambition target of quadrupling its charging sockets to 40,000 and help Britain achieve its target of 300,000 public chargers installed by the year 2030. And so all this 300,000 public charging points needs to be reviewed against the number of electric vehicles that are sold in Britain to ensure that these 300,000 public charging points are adequate to support obviously the owners or the number of people that owns these vehicles. James Taylor, Vauxhall UK Managing Director, called the extra funding to curbside charging points a welcome boost at a pivotal time. He added, "We need to ensure that these new on-street chargers, which are key to enabling those without a drive to charge their EVs, get installed in the right towns and streets where they will get use." So this is good. If the investment goes to local councils to do this on-street charging points, this can be great. Some of the challenges that also currently exist is that you may go to a local area, you may find that most of the streets are these controlled areas whereby you cannot even park without having a permit. You have to pay to park on these streets. Then the added challenge is that if they even install these points, these electric charging points in the ground, by the street, by the roadside, they need to be grouped in such a way that some sections of the street are allocated for normal cars, normal petrol and diesel car, and then where there is a point for an electric vehicle in the street, then those areas should be marked mainly for electric vehicles. So what you tend to find is that you may find these charging points in the ground, but because the floors are not marked for EVs, you may find that the points are there, but then ordinary cars, petrol and diesel cars, come to park in those areas, such that when your electric vehicle, the battery is drained, and then you come and you want to park, you will find that the points are there that you could use, but somebody is parked there, a petrol or diesel engine there, and therefore you may find that you may not be able to charge your vehicle. And the risk that is associated with these electric vehicles are just so dangerous, in the sense that I could be driving, in recent experience that I've had, travel to Bath, trying to make my way back to London. I look for electric charging points in the Bath area, found one, cannot actually use it. All the guys there that were trying to charge the electric vehicles couldn't charge it because the machine will not accept their card. It will not accept their payments. And so, you have all these multiple problems that really needs to be addressed. These things should be reliable, dependable, and available to use. And it should be such a way that you don't need to download an app or subscribe to anything, but you can just go, tap your card and use it just as you go into any other filling station. And hopefully, if the councils are doing this on street, they will be able to set an average decent price, because in any case, the EVs charging it should always be cheaper than the petrol and diesel engines, basically buying petrol and diesel to make it worth anybody trying to basically upgrade their vehicles from petrol and diesel into an electric vehicle. But if the electric vehicle charging cost is actually higher, then where is the incentive to actually wanting to upgrade? We must always remember all the added hassle of having to, stop elsewhere, recharge your batteries before you can move on. These are all issues. Then the other thing that really needs to be looked at is how quickly can you charge your electric vehicle. Currently, as it stands at 1.5 hours, these are not good enough. Maximum should be 30 minutes, or even if not less, for somebody to come in and then get that rapid charge and keep moving. If people are also working, what they are finding out is that the times that they could be obviously being private hire chauffeurs and drivers, the time that they should be on the road doing their work, they could find themselves that they are parked somewhere charging their vehicles for 2 hours, for 3 hours, sometimes for overnight, depending on the type of charger that they can find. So we carry on. Which areas of the UK are falling behind in the public charging rollout? While the government recently announced that the UK is on track to deliver required number of charging points by the end of the decade, some areas are lagging behind. This is money recently reported by how there is a geographical north-south divide for EV public charger availability. The latest published figures by charge point mapping service ZapMap shows that the north of England is far behind the south for device accessibility. So we also found this kind of a problem where when you were on the road and you were looking for a point, ZapMap could actually, especially when you were outside London. My current experience was my journey into Somerset. ZapMap will tell you, okay, there's a charging point here. You actually drive there and there is no charging point. Or even if there is, it's just a single charging point and it's also a slow charger. That means if you try to use it, you may have to park your vehicle there, maybe overnight. Then you also have the other problem of you could go to say, you may find that a charging point is at a parking spot. So when you go in to use these charging points, you have to pay for using that charge, basically this parking spot where the charger is. So you're getting double charge. So you enter the when you enter this charging place, obviously parking place to charge your vehicle, they want to charge you something like £15. And then after they charging you £15, then you now have to pay for actually using the charger. So these are the challenges that we currently face, which must also be looked at, because in effect, if someone comes to a car park to use a charging point, then in effect they shouldn't be paying for that parking for using the parking area if they are only coming to use their EV charging. So all these needs to be dealt with. Otherwise, the person goes to charge their vehicle and they are paying the parking. They have to pay to use that parking place and then have to pay also for using the electric charging machine. So these are some of the problems that really needs to be addressed. Last year, we also reported that the latest government data showed that there were regional disparities in charge point rollout, with the Southeast averaging 82 devices per 100,000, with the Southwest just behind with 80. as of the end of July. So these are not really encouraging figures. So you are saying that you have 82 charging devices per 100,000 vehicles. I mean, that is not that great. And so all these things needs to be addressed. In comparison, Yorkshire and the Humberside has also 56 charges per 100,000, and the Northwest doesn't fare much better with 60% charges, 60 charges per 100,000. However, the Northeast fares better overall with 72 per 100,000, yet is the only area of the UK to not seen an increase in devices in the last quarter. But Connected Curb has since announced plans to more than double the number of charging points in the Northeast via its partnership with the South Tyneside Council. So really, if the council really, obviously the government funding goes to the councils to actually invest in this roadside charging points, that can be great because you can get a decent price possibly from using these devices rather than going to the Shell. And so something has to be done with these Instavolt and Shell charging these astronomical prices. Governments needs to approach them, find out why their prices are so high, and find out why their prices are no better or actually far worse than prices that people are paying for petrol and diesel engines. Because until that incentive becomes available, indeed, this may not be the most beneficial way. So BP Connect Curb has since announced plans to more than double the number of charge points in the Northeast via its partnership with South Tyneside Council. So these are all promises, but we need actual action, direct action that can actually impact the current problem that is faced to resolve those problems. So we look at the rollout of 2,100 EV charging points deployed, marked the largest ever deployment of charging infrastructure in Northeast, and will see the region, which is home to just 2.7% of the UK charging infrastructure, receive a 126% boost in its existing network, playing a fundamental role in leveling up across the charging infrastructure. At this stage, we will bring this video to an end, but this is where we are, and it is a real challenge. And so add your comments, add your contributions. If you think that there is something good going on, or this thing is better and it is being reported in this way, add your comments and contributions. We want to know what is really going on and how these problems can be resolved. Thank you once again for watching this video. In the next video, we are going to move on and go back to our topic on Brexit. I think in our next video, we're going to ask, 5 years on, what has been the advantages and the disadvantages of the Brexit, and as the UK likely to rejoin the European Union. Thank you once again for watching. Goodbye.